Ray Rodriguez is damage controlling on Twitter regarding his disaster of a show. Let's talk about it. I really didn't think I'd have to come back to talking about this show or its creator, but here we are. Apparently he's trying to defend this show by blaming its shortcomings on its low budget on Twitter, and I just want to provide my impressions on it, so here we go. So, I'm gonna read these tweets, and I'm gonna give my immediate first impressions, but shortly after that I'll provide a proper breakdown and pick apart all of its stupidity. So, yeah, here we go. Alright, so, first things first. High Guardian Spice had a very small budget. We were the first show of a non-union studio. If you're mad at the animation quality, it was the budget. BG art? Budget. Writing? What the fuck? What does budget have to do with writing? Okay, whatever. We literally started storyboarding the first episode before the first script was finished. So when we inevitably ran into problems, all productions do, we didn't have the time or money to slow down and fix them. We had to barrel forward and make do with what we had. People compare High Guardian Spice to anime because it's on Crunchyroll, but it is an anime. It's a cartoon made with the same pipeline as any other American cartoon. Our budget was comparable to a CN show, which are usually 11 minutes long, are comedy-centered, and have much simpler BGs and characters. Really, the best show to compare High Guardian Spice to was Onyx Equinox, a show that I actually watched, and yeah, that show wasn't very good either, honestly. But anyway, our sister show and the only other show made at the same studio as High Guardian Spice. When he says that, does he mean like the outsourced Korean animation studios that worked on it, or is he referring to the studio that they were doing the storyboarding and voice acting in? I do wonder. But anyway, Onyx Equinox had the advantage of learning from the mistakes on High Guardian Spice and being union, but it was a lot of the same team and same pipeline. What we were trying to make was incredibly... Shit. Okay. What was incredibly ambitious for what we were working with, and we did the best we could. Maybe in another timeline, High Guardian Spice would have gotten the budget and schedule it needed to reach its full potential. And also in another timeline, maybe High Guardian Spice wouldn't have been roped into the culture wars from its first trailer and marked as bad years before it came out. Wow, okay, so Ray is just as delusional regarding the show as the fans of the show are. Oh, that's interesting. But alas, this is the timeline we're in, and all I can do is just shout about it on Twitter. Instead of piling onto the High Guardian Spice's trash campaign, maybe think about what happened behind the scenes to make it that way, and have empathy for the real human beings who did their best working on it. Oh yeah, let me have lots and lots of empathy for Mrs. fucking Kill All Men. Yeah, I have so much empathy for your people. Yep, totally. But yeah, and think critically about the people who started the hate campaign in the first place. There is so much delusion in these fucking tweets. Like, remember when I specifically said in those High Guardian Spice review videos that I specifically referred to Ray Rodriguez as an emotionally unstable teen in a grown adult's body? This just reinforces that. Like, this just solidifies that. So yeah, let me just break all of this shit apart because there's a lot to unpack here. Okay, so let's break down the first tweet. High Guardian Spice had a very small budget. Right off the bat, that is the narrative you're going to try and bring home to defend how poor this show is. But that's no excuse. There are plenty of TV shows and anime with small budgets that are really, really good. Like, for example, Ping Pong the Animation. That anime looks like shit. I can't deny it, but it's also one of the most well-written animes in existence that I've ever fucking seen. But anyway, the next thing he says, we were the first show of a non-union studio. If you're mad at the animation quality, it was the budget. BG art, that's the result of the budget. And then he says that the writing is the fault of the budget, which makes absolutely no fucking sense. He does actually try to defend the statement by saying this in a completely different tweet. He does say this: what does budget have to do with writing? Writers are paid employees. Smaller budget equals less time to write, less time to correct notes, and less time to plan ahead. So yeah, he's saying that the fact that the writers were underpaid is why the story is so bland. But here's the deal, that's no fucking excuse. Writing quality is not a time-based issue. It's just a talent issue. Again, I want to bring it up again. Ping Pong the Animation. It's animated like garbage, but the writing is fucking stellar. So very clearly, Ping Pong had a low budget, but it still has amazing writing. And on top of that, there are plenty of really good fan fictions and stories on Wattpad, and those writers on that website are not getting paid at all. So you saying that poor writing is a result of the bad budget, that's no excuse. That is absolutely no excuse. Going back to the original tweet, we literally started storyboarding the first episode before the first script was finished. Okay, here's my response to that. That is fucking insanity. If you are this underprepared and underpaid to complete this animated project, why would you start it to begin with? Why didn't you just fucking wait until you were ready? Instead of just barreling forward, as you say in the second tweet. Again, I already said this in the High Guardian Spice Suck series. Animation is one of the most time-consuming and expensive things to do. Animation is not something you just dive into and rush things out. You cannot do that. It just doesn't work like that. And if you do that, you're gonna end up with shit like Misty Crenexia and the fucking 18 Seals or whatever that garbage was called. Or you're gonna end up with X-Arm or something ridiculous like that. You can't rush into animation. You just can't. There is no reason to rush into shit like this. Again, why didn't you just not do this? Why didn't you just stop working on it and then wait until you're properly ready? Okay, so let me go ahead and break this part down. Our budget was comparable to a CN show, which are usually 11 minutes long, are comedy-centered, and have much simpler BG and characters. That's not really, I wouldn't really compare that to a CN show. That's more like an 11-minute long, simple animation thing that's revolved around comedy. That seems more like an Adult Swim type thing, but whatever, ignoring that. So, your TV show has the budget that would only support an 11-minute long type show like Robot Chicken or something, right? If, I know I said this twice already, but if you're this underprepared, why would you take on such a grandiose fucking project? Okay, so in this tweet, he continues to say that maybe if it had the budget and time that it needed, it could have reached its full potential. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop you there and say this. No, even if this had a proper budget and schedule, this show still would have been the most generic garbage on planet Earth. The writing is ass. There's no changing or fixing it. The art style is generic Steven Universe wannabe type shit. There is no amount of budget and schedule is going to fix these very basic fundamental issues that this show has. Let me ask you this. Is a $1 million budget going to change the fact that there is blatant misandry in the writing? Is a really wide deadline going to change the fact that the art style is just generic Steven Universe wannabe type shit? Is a $1 million budget going to improve the LGBT propaganda in this show? Is it going to remove it? The answer is no. The answer is no to all of that. So yeah, again, the fact that Ray Rodriguez is blaming this awful show on its poor budget is no excuse. It's just not. Oh, yeah, also, this is a big one that I want to talk about. He also says that in another timeline, maybe High Guardian Spice would have been roped into the culture wars from its first trailer and marked as bad years before it came out. That last part of that sentence seems to imply that the only reason why people think it's bad is because it got roped into culture wars to begin with. But yeah, no. The fact that it got quote-unquote roped into culture wars is not why it was marked as bad years before it came out. People saw the storyboards, people saw the art style. The few instances of artwork in that first trailer already showed bad signs. And the shit that your writing team and staff were talking about in that trailer already implied the fact that your people were not interested in making a good show and instead were interested in just shoving politics down your throat. That's why it was marked as bad years before it came out. And yes, unfortunately, your show did get roped into culture wars from its first trailer. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to make that trailer, it was awful, but it seems like Ray Rodriguez was not the person to think up of making that trailer for the show, based off of what he's talking about in his tweets, so I guess I'll give him a little bit of credit. He didn't want to do that. The show was still garbage though regardless. Instead of piling on to the High Guardian Spice's trash campaign, think about what happened behind the scenes to make it that way. You want me to have empathy for the real human beings that did their best working on it? Okay, well how about this? When your staff stops talking about how much they want to kill men on Twitter and being blatant misandrists, and on top of that, when they stop writing blatant misandry in their fucking scripts to this dumpy ass show, maybe I'll show off some empathy. When your staff stops writing degenerate shit that is literally teaching kids that they should become transgender if they show any form of fucking acting like a girl, then I'll choose to show some fucking empathy. How about that? When your writers stop being pieces of shit, then I'll start providing empathy. Sorry, I got worked up there. And lastly, he says, think critically about who started this hate campaign in the first place. Yeah, I know who started this hate campaign in the first place. Your fucking people did. When your dumbass writing team wrote all that degenerate shit, all the blatant sexism, all the blatant misandry into that dumpy ass show, you started the hate campaign. You brought it upon yourself. This is what I mean when I say that Ray Rodriguez is a fucking emotionally unstable Tumblr artist trapped in a grown adult's body. Because this person has absolutely no fundamental ability to fucking learn from his mistakes. This guy rushed and rushed and rushed through one of the most time-consuming and expensive fucking things you can do on Earth. And after the animated series turned out to be a massive disaster, his first instinct is to fucking deflect any form of criticism towards the show on its shit budget. Ray, dude, listen to me. The reason why this show is fucking trash is not because of its low budget. It's because of its low quality. Quality can be put into anything, regardless of how much time and money is put into it. Ray Rodriguez lives in a fucking fantasy world. He has to live in a fucking fantasy world. He has to. How else is he going to cope with the fact that he pitched an idea for a TV show for fucking years and years, and now that it's finally come out, it turns out that it's one of the most hated things on the internet? How else is this guy going to cope with the massive storm of hate that he got? How else is he going to cope with all of the hate that he gets on Twitter because of how poor this show is? Ray Rodriguez is delusional. But you know what? That's perfectly fine. Because when he produces his next garbage-ass project, Reclaim Gloria, I can't fucking wait to review it. I cannot wait. So yeah, that's basically my general opinion on this. Ray Rodriguez lives in a fucking fantasy world and has no ability to accept responsibility for his poor fault. So yeah, that's it. You guys take it easy. Oh, and by the way, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. My very first $10 Patreon is Duke Dragon Hearhfire the 10th. And of course, let's not forget our $5 Patreons. They are appreciated just as much as all of you guys. And of course, you guys can support me on Patreon as well. You can be in the credits of all my videos just by dropping by my Patreon and supporting me. You can find it on patreon.com/blacklightjack. You guys have a good one.